They're arrested.
All right, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. It's just about 10:32. Good morning, everybody. So I'm a new face for many of you. I'm Elizabeth Moore, and I'm the Senior Director of Alumni and Constituent Engagement, and I joined this role back in the fall. So I'm not new to Fisher, though. I'm an 04 grad, and about 10 years ago, I started my fundraising career here at Fisher. So I'm thrilled to be back and welcome you new today to First Friday. Couple housekeeping things. If you're joining on Zoom, as a reminder, there is the chat feature available. So go ahead and click the bubble at the bottom of your screen, and you can go ahead and write your questions, and we'll be reviewing them at the end of the lecture. I'm excited today to introduce you to Dr. Kristin Picardo. Dr. Picardo is the Assistant Provost, and she leads the Office of Sponsored Programs here at Fisher. She spearheads the efforts to secure and administer grant funding that is crucial to supporting the institution's teaching, outreach, and research endeavors. In addition, Dr. Picardo serves as the founding director of the Center for Student Research and Creative Work, where she cultivates an environment for students to immerse themselves in meaningful research opportunities. Kristin is an invaluable partner here at Institutional Advancement, where she consistently aids in securing vital funding opportunities. Her wealth of knowledge and dedication make her a true asset to our team and the entire university. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Dr. Picardo.
Thank you so much for that very warm introduction. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today to talk about one of my most favorite subjects here at Fisher, and that's student research. And so these photos I have to share with you. The picture of the campus is my most favorite picture. And I hope you're enjoying that picture with all of the fall foliage, right? So relaxing and the beautiful sunshine. So the photos at the bottom of this first slide are just a variety of different students, right? Doing the different things that we consider research here at Fisher. And so we have a student presenting at a poster. We then have a student working on his computer, and this was during the pandemic. So even the pandemic did not stop our summer research program. And so you'll see Elijah working on his computer. Right in the middle, these are students presenting at a professional conference. So I'll come back and I'll touch on all of these different pieces during the talk this morning. We have a student hard at work in the biology lab. And then on the far right, you're seeing some pharmacy students presenting along with some faculty at our showcase. So after that beautiful formal introduction, I wanted to let you know a little bit more about me in a less formal way. This is how I used to connect with my students. So before transitioning almost 2 years ago now to the Office of Sponsored Programs, I spent 16 years on the biology faculty here. And so a little bit more about me, I'm actually a microbiologist. So my formal training is in bacteriology. So I study bacteria that cause disease in humans. And so much of my mentoring was in my research lab on pathogenic bacteria. I mentored over 50 students here at Fisher. It was my absolute favorite thing to do. I joined Fisher in September of 2006. And my fun fact is that I refused to update my ID photo because I'm young, I'm smiling, I'm so ecstatic that I got this position here at Fisher, and I wanted to capture that memory. And so I plan to glue it back together if need be. I am a boy mom, so I have 2 teenage boys. So if I look tired, you know why. Freshly turned 13, and my oldest is about to turn 16.
God bless you.
Hold on to the podium. I'm a horse lover. And so this is a photo of me wrapping St. John Fisher in my Fisher t-shirt. I'm in Flagstaff, Arizona in this picture. The horse's name is Little Bit. I made my 11-year-old self so proud and went horseback riding in Arizona, a little goal I had for myself a long time ago. I was actually there for a professional conference, got in a little early. I Ubered into the mountains with no cell service. I survived. It was amazing. And, you know, go Bills, but I can't talk about it. So here at Fisher, yes, we have a formal vision for student research and our Center for Student Research and Creative Work, right? We have a mission that guides what we do. Today, I'm going to talk about 3 important aspects of the work. And so we have a Summer Fellows Research Program that I'll talk the most about and share some, hopefully some interesting student tidbits so you get to see more about the students. We support an annual symposium. So we now call that our Fisher Showcase. And I'm hoping to show you a little video clip of what that's like for our students, faculty, and staff that participate. And we also have funds that allow us to send students to professional conferences. So just like that center photo, we have some funds that help support those students being able to engage in meaningful experiential learning opportunities, professional conferences. It even might be something in their field of interest where, you know, it's just going to set them apart and give them that gold star on the resume, a different experience than maybe they would have had, you know, in the classroom, for example. So something I really want to make the point about, and is a very hot topic nationally, we are institutional members of the Council on Undergraduate Research, for which I've served in a number of different roles over the years. Students gaining workforce readiness skills is critical, right? At a time where we've got some questions lingering about the value of higher education and what it is that we offer at an institution like Fisher, and making sure that the experiences outside of the classroom are complementing and elevating the student experience. And so we think a lot nationally about these workforce readiness skills, but they're basic, right? Things like communication, critical thinking, teamwork. So I'm especially excited that Fisher is at the forefront. We have a seat at the table nationally as part of CUR. We have divisional representatives, and I sit on a task force that thinks about this. And so it's something that's central to our work with undergraduate research here at Fisher. These students in this photo are wearing the same t-shirt I was wearing on my horseback ride, sharing about the Summer Fellows Research Program back when it was Summer Science Fellows. And so some of you in the room I know are remembering back when we used to invite folks in to listen to the students' STEM posters, right? Math was also included, computer science. And this was a natural evolution, right? So much of research and discovery happens in the sciences, in the STEM fields. We know that. What was really important for us here at Fisher is even though a lot of the strength and the momentum was built in the sciences for student research, we've expanded across all disciplines. And that makes me smile and something I'm extremely proud of, because being a scholar in a discipline or even in an area the students are passionate about really does expand those opportunities for learning. And so a little bit about our Summer Fellows Research Program. Any undergraduate student can participate. They have to be in good academic standing. Therefore, this is not only for the A students. Good academic standing is important. We want them to be able to focus on their classes first, make sure they're in good standing, and then this is an opportunity that can really elevate a C student, a B+ student, helps them find their passion, hone those skills in an entirely different way. In most cases, they are working one-on-one with faculty. And the best part about this is the faculty member and the students work as a team. And I always say, no one knows the right answer. You're exploring together. You're a team. You're going to go back and forth. You're going to try things. You're going to fail. Ugh. Well, what do you mean I'm going to fail, right? This is usually really scary for students. I certainly have had students in the laboratory where their experiments don't work. And I've had them not want to tell me. Even though we have a great, working relationship in the laboratory, they know that this is to be expected, but they're afraid to tell me that things didn't work out. This went on for weeks. And one of my more recent, not graduate students, undergraduate researchers. And I said, Logan, why didn't you tell me? Well, I was afraid to, Dr. Picardo, because it didn't turn out the way we expected. And I said, okay, we need to talk because look at what you learned. Look at the direction this is going to take us now. And guess what? You're supposed to fail. Things are supposed to not work. We're supposed to come back together and put our brains together and rack our brains and try things a new way. And that's what makes research so exciting, of course, to me. And I hope the students have a whole new experience because that's not the case usually in a regular class. I'm looking at our students who you'll get to hear from today. You don't get to fail all the time and feel good about it. But in research, you do. That's how we learn. Okay, so the students have a couple of options, right? They can work up to 35 hours a week and earn pay, like a summer job, right, over the 10 weeks. Or there might be a student in the situation where they need to earn academic credit. And so they prefer their award to be a tuition waiver. And they can earn academic credit and a grade for that research experience. So it's really tailored to what the student needs at that point in their undergraduate career. Students have access to supply funds. So this becomes really important. How are we going to do this special project, right, that the student and the faculty member have come up with that they feel is important and timely? Sometimes that costs money. Of course, in my lab, we had to buy the reagents that would allow us to culture the bacteria, to isolate DNA, things like that. There may be students in the humanities that need to visit museums that have a fee or a charge. So there's a variety of different things that the students and the faculty will need supply money for. We provide that. Again, to make the point that there are faculty mentors, and it's usually a one-on-one relationship. I make this point, and this is unique, because a place like Fisher, we can do this really, really well. This is an elevated experience for teaching, right? It's different than the classroom. The one student that they're working with has all of their attention. They are working as a team and as partners, intellectual partners. And this is different at a big Research One university, where the primary investigator, the lead of a certain research group might have graduate students or postdocs. It could be, a really large group, and the undergraduate student might be working with one of them. In the case here, the student gets the faculty member, and I think that's really special. We have special programming, so we have an orientation, a kickoff. We have what we call coffee talks, so snacks and professional development opportunities. We hear from other faculty and staff on campus that speak on a particular topic. For example, resilience, right? How to fail and feel good about it in research. We always end with a session with our career services staff, and that's purposeful. We have the students sit down with the professional career services staff, and they say, okay, you just spent 10 weeks in this unique experience, learning and growing and potentially failing and picking yourself back up again. How are you then going to translate all of that into language on your resume or a cover letter or a job application that helps you tell your story, right? How you've grown. How do you talk about your skills in ways that future graduate schools or employers are really going to understand? And so we build that right in and the students attend. Finally, we cap off with our research celebration, and I see President Rooney here. So thank you. President and Mrs. Rooney always host a really wonderful reception at the end of the summer. We celebrate, we hear from the students. It's a wonderful way to end the summer and get excited about the fall semester. So just to give you a little bit more flavor, since I couldn't bring a whole group of students, only 2 that you'll get to hear from today, of the different types of work in the recent 3 or 4 years. We've got a student, Jacob Vinch, did work in economics. Notably, he presented at a professional associations conference. So this is an undergraduate student presenting at the conference in the field. And so that's something we're very proud of. We've got a student in computer science. And Jeff talks about how he wanted to apply what he was learning in the classroom to real world problems, the stock market, traffic, and more. I love his last sentence. He learned about thinking outside of the box to come up with a solution. So again, there wasn't a clear path to the solution. The student had to really dig in and think critically about what it is he was trying to tackle and solve. And the photo on the right is a student and his mentor, a professor in chemistry, and they were studying the tiger nut. And the tiger nut became a point of interest to them through a connection with a faculty member in the School of Business. So interestingly, right, we have a lot of conversations among each other here at Fisher, so across different divisions and disciplines, which just enriches and brings more opportunities to students and to faculty, a new research path in this case, which is always a lot of fun. We also dig in and get involved with community and student researchers. Sometimes this happens in teams. And so in the two little examples here, I will try to play the audio. We'll see if technology will participate with us today. Abigail was a nursing student, and she worked on a community-based team project with the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative in the Wegman School of Nursing.
Hi, my name is Abigail Derafinko. I'm a nursing major at St. John Fisher College, and over the summer I worked at the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative regarding cultural concerns and toxic stress. The definition of toxic stress is the prolonged activation of the stress response with the failure of the body to recover fully. It differs from a normal stress response in that there is a lack of caregiver support, reassurance, or emotional attachments, and these types of insufficiencies prevents the buffering of the stress response.
I'm going to guess that that's not understandable. Not just me. I apologize. I wasn't sure how it was going to work sharing through Zoom. So I'll give you the gist. So the way that these community projects tend to work is that the students will partner with faculty, and sometimes the faculty are from multiple disciplines. And so in this case, the Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative and our students in nursing, with faculty both in nursing and public health, we had projects over a couple of different summers where what they were working on morphed a little bit and grew. So we were able to maintain those community partnerships and evolve the research and the work with different groups of students. And so Abigail has a YouTube clip here that I apologize, I couldn't get to come through clearly for you, but she's looking at toxic stress. So thinking about, right, something we all think about, right, the stress response, but thinking about how poverty and people's lived experiences change what that stress response can look like. And so our students are deeply, deeply committed and involved with community-based work, and research is no exception. And so students do have an opportunity to dig in intellectually, not just on a volunteer basis, but intellectually with our faculty and the connections that Fisher has. On the bottom, this is a team of students. They're hard at work. I love the action shots. They worked with Dr. Vaca, a professor in history here at Fisher that some of you may know. And this was back in the summer of 2019, and their topic was No Better Soil, the Neighborhoods of Frederick Douglass. This was a team that worked, all of the 5 students, 35 hours a week over the 10 weeks. This was intense. And so they were working with Dr. Vaca as their lead, but they did work with a variety of community members as well. Something that we were extremely proud of is that the group presented at the National Association of African American Studies and Affiliates Conference, which happened to be held locally that year. So it was beautifully aligned. Our students put forward an abstract to be presented. It was peer reviewed and accepted for presentation. And this is always, how can we not love this photo, right? Of our student studying abroad in Costa Rica. So this is Jenna, and she was studying abroad in Costa Rica. She has starfish in her hands. She was able to weave together the experiential learning opportunity of studying abroad with research. And so she partnered with a biology faculty member and wove together her experience abroad and her student research. And so that's always something I love to show and share about. Andrew in the top right, near and dear to my heart. This was a student, an international student from Ghana. And he actually, a fun fact, and I hope he can't hear me right now telling this story, but he had never experienced winter. And poor Andrew, he was freezing. And so he came to me, Dr. Picardo, I don't have questions about biology today. Where do I buy, the warm gear? I said, like gloves and a hat and a coat. Yeah. He's like, I see some of my friends. I said, okay, let's talk. And we went over the different options of places and why you might consider one type of glove over another. And I thought for sure when he went home over that first break, he was not coming back. He came back, he was just lovely. And he said, no, I can do it, Dr. Picardo, I can do it. I love it. So actually in this photo though, one summer when he did go home to West Africa, he had the opportunity to work in a medical research center. And so he was involved there in, you can see him at the microscope. They were looking at malaria and some molecular mechanisms of why certain people were more susceptible to malaria compared to others. And so, yes, that wasn't research that happened here at Fisher, but he's one of ours, and he maximized his learning in his preparation here at Fisher to be able to be prepared to go home to a medical center and engage in that research in the laboratory. So of course, that's always a fun thing to share back. In the bottom right, this is a student who graduated in 23. Again, during COVID, it didn't stop us. And so here is a photo of Maria working on her project with the nursing faculty during COVID times. And we did ask the students, capture yourself in your research environment. And so you'll see some of the pictures of the students at their computers. This is to make the point too that the way that we view undergraduate research here at Fisher is really the broad spectrum. Students that are brand new and needing to read the literature and really think critically about the gaps in the literature and the problems that need addressing, to students who have been doing research for 2, 3, even the full 4 years, and how that looks a little bit different as they progress. So switching gears a little bit away from our summer research program, I want to also share with you that our students, our scholars, they've won awards. They earn research grants. They're not all listed here, but it happens regularly. They publish in peer-reviewed journals and undergraduate research journals with our faculty. So the photos that you're seeing here on the left, this is a student that I had the joy of teaching, Alex Friedenberg. He is on, I think this is Hill Day, yes, ASBMB's Hill Day. And so this was for science advocacy. He had to apply to be a part of this. He was one of very, very few, a handful at best, undergraduates that got to participate in the science advocacy event. So of course, that was a very big deal. We were very proud to see him there. And Alex actually did undergraduate research starting in his first year here at Fisher. From the moment he walked in, I'm gonna do undergrad research. So, okay, Alex, let's do it. And so he worked with Dr. Janelle Maticio in the biology department, primarily for that work, but that prepared him and made him competitive for a summer research opportunity with the US Navy. And so after having some background in research here at Fisher, he had a full summer experience with the US Navy. They trusted him so much, they let him take a piece of that project back here to Fisher with him for his senior year. Alex is now an anesthesiologist. I do get regular updates, so it's great fun to be able to tell the students stories. In the top right, yes, that's Alex in the pink, but you're seeing George Roba and Zai in the center there. They are at a professional meeting for students. I think this was our Tri Beta Biology Honor Society National Convention. So students get involved in research, but they also, right, our students are leaders. They can't help it. They are involved in ways that they want to be a piece of this in a bigger way. And so they're on the board, the executive board of these National Honor Societies, so the chapter here at Fisher. And so that got them the chance to go and to present their work at the national conference. And so George on the far left actually worked in psychology and biology. He had 2 very different research projects while here at Fisher. And he won 2nd place in an award for excellence in student research at this national meeting. I think they enjoyed the trip as well. You see them all dressed up by the ocean there. And in the bottom right, what I want to share here is this is Maura Connerton. So she's in biology. She's pictured with Dr. Ed Freeman, colleague of mine in the biology department. She won a competitive fellowship through the Endocrine Society. Again, this is not something that they normally will give students from schools like Fisher, a smaller, primarily undergraduate institution. They usually are giving these awards to students at large Research 1 universities. This is special. And so Maura was paid for doing her student research. She also, as part of that award, had professional mentoring through professionals in the field of endocrinology. All through that summer, it was a whole program, and she won all costs covered to the professional conference. Now, COVID hit, so she wasn't able to attend that professional conference, but it was a substantial award that Maura was able to successfully achieve. A few more highlights for you. So we are very, very proud of the fact that we have served 285 students. That's before this coming summer, but applications are rolling in. I'm excited. For our Summer Fellows Research Program, since that formally began in 2011. External grants. So again, to put on my other hat a little bit, this is something that's been very important to me. How can we supplement the support from Fisher and our administration, which is extraordinarily generous, with external funding, get us some recognition, right? Our students are doing the work. And so we're really proud to say that over the last handful of years, we've had between 19 and 40% of those summer research costs covered by external grants. About 40 to 50 students a year will receive funding for that off-campus travel to conferences and experiential learning opportunities that I mentioned at the beginning of the talk. And so this is in part supported by institutional funds, in part by the Fisher Fund. So even faculty and staff are really excited to be able to put in some of their donations toward sending students to conferences. It means a lot to our faculty and staff. And we also have a special thanks to Dr. Fran and Lisa Murphy, who have given an endowed gift that helps us cover these costs. We have about 150 to 200 students, and this is undergrad and grad, participate in our annual symposium every year. We now call this the Fisher Showcase. I had a video that I was going to show you. I'm just thinking, it's not going to show well. So I'll describe it to you in just a minute. Again, to make the point that we have a voice. We at Fisher have a voice on the national level with the Council on Undergraduate Research. We have 2 divisional representatives currently. We've had up to 4, which is unique for one institution over the years. And I sit on an active work group on career readiness and undergrad research. Again, just to make the point that students publish peer-reviewed journals in the field. They present at professional conferences. They also are participating in these things on the undergraduate level. And so variety of different ways that our students are getting out there, and they're seeing that sort of bookend of research, right? They're seeing it all the way through to dissemination and sharing and informing the broader field. There is a YouTube video, and you're welcome to even search for it, right? Fisher Showcase. This video is from last year. Last year, we made a switch. So we had been, since 2017, doing an annual symposium, and it was all students, undergrad and grad. Last year, we mixed it up a little bit. We thought we would try something a little bit different, and we involved faculty and staff. The idea was, can faculty, staff, and students stand shoulder to shoulder, side by side, and be scholars together for the day? And of course, you see me smiling. Like, I think this is a great idea. How wonderful it always is. It's my favorite day of the year on campus. I get to wander around and enjoy learning from my students, right? The reverse is awesome. And get to see all of the different work in their classes, their experiential learning opportunities, their research, things that they're involved in. And so we're going to try it again this year with students, faculty, and staff standing side by side. And I'm really, really excited to see how this goes. Now, what we've really all been waiting for, it is my pleasure to turn things over to 2 exceptional graduating seniors. I am absolutely thrilled to have the 2 of you here with me today. I'm extremely proud of the work you've done and where you will go. And I can't wait to have you on my earlier slides someday and be telling stories about you to another group. So we're going to have 2 students come up and present. So we're going to switch over a little bit with our presentations. First, we'll have Mia. So Mia is a graduating senior, and she's in public health and psychology, minors in Spanish and ethics. You've been busy. A rare impact ambassador, and if you have questions about that, I'll let Mia answer. Studied abroad in Spain. Worked with BBC, right? And Maybelline and the Jed Foundation on an upcoming docuseries. I mean, I never did anything cool like this. It's amazing. And after Fisher, we all have to wait and see, right? Okay. Then we have Chrissy Wilson. Chrissy, I know from biology. Right, so I roped her in, she said yes. Chrissy is a biology major with minors in chemistry and English. She's presented at 5 out-of-state conferences. I don't even think I did that as a graduate student, Chrissy. She's a National Science Foundation STEM scholar here at Fisher. After Fisher, she will be pursuing her PhD at the UVA Biomedical Sciences program. And she's first in her family to go to grad school. So was I. So of course, right? I'm excited for you. So with that, we'll hold questions to the end. I hope that's okay. I'm going to turn things over to Mia first and then to Chrissy. Thank you. Oh dear.
Beautiful. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Picardo, for the warm welcome. So as Dr. Picardo said, my name is Mia, and I am a senior this year, a public health major, psychology major, and minors in ethics and Spanish. I am from Buffalo, so also go Bills, but don't want to talk about it. And then some of my hobbies include cycling, reading, and then spending time with some friends. And in addition to that, I do quite a lot of advocacy work. So I just want to share some different things that we're working on right now. So in terms of mental health advocacy, as Dr. Picardo had mentioned, I'm a Rare Impact ambassador. So the Rare Impact Fund is off of Selena Gomez's Rare Beauty brand, and it really talks about raising money for mental health resources for young people. And then for the Jed Foundation, I began on the task force at Fisher and have since been able to, as Dr. Picardo said, work with BBC, Maybelline, and the Jed Foundation. And through that, I've also been able to do some interviews, which has been super exciting, and just overall networking with some really amazing people. Another area of interest would be in sexual violence. So this past fall, I created the Fisher Student Respect Alliance, which is a club working on educating individuals about sexual violence awareness and prevention. And through this, I've been able to go to a conference through It's On Us, which is a sexual violence conference, and it was held in Boston. And then in terms of research, so my first research experience began over the summer going into my sophomore year. And it was very exciting because I was able to look at nonprofit healthcare organizations and the capacity for them to care for their patients. So a little anecdote is I actually used to be a nursing major. So I came in as a nursing major, and then after learning more about this, the idea of like mental health and whatnot and just overall experience, I decided to change that. But anyways, so within this presentation, I was able to learn about nonprofit grant funding. So I was able to work with Maya Temperley, who unfortunately is no longer here, and we worked on a logic model. So a logic model really just works to go step by step into who are the individuals, who are the stakeholders, whether it's community members or people being directly impacted. So in this case, for our input, or the people most impacted would be the nonprofit organization, healthcare organizations. And then the target population would be the health professionals who are interested in nonprofit work. So the end goal of this research was to be able to equip our Wegman School of Nursing students with nonprofit grant skills. Unfortunately, there's not many people who not many nonprofits who allocate one person to grant funding. And because of this, it doesn't allow as much time to write grants. So we thought that through equipping our nursing students with this, it would be able to help in terms of grant funding and just overall marketableness when it comes to being in the workforce. So throughout this process, we had to work on an institutional review board. So if any of you know what that is, it's a very technical form that talks more about the ethics. And that's kind of where my ethics minor came in as well. And then for short-term outcomes, really just looking at the infrastructure of nonprofit organizations. So this was done through creating and distributing a Qualtrics survey to nonprofit healthcare organizations around Rochester, and through that responding and seeing where those gaps are. And then long-term outcomes is, as I said, looking at the Wegman School of Nursing and equipping them with those skills. So one of my most recent research opportunities was to investigate the violent crimes and homicides in Rochester. So between the years of 2020 and 2022, there was a doubling in homicides in Rochester. Yes. So unfortunately, we just really wanted to get to the bottom of where is this coming from. So because I'm interested in both public health and psychology, I was able to look at both lenses. I specifically worked on adverse childhood experiences. So adverse childhood experiences talks about any traumatic events that occur before the age of 18. And then some examples of those include parental divorce, parental substance abuse, alcoholism, violence, abuse, neglect, sexual assault, and parental incarceration. So through acknowledging all of these different factors, we can see kind of where things not per se went wrong, but where attitudes are stemming from or not being able to cope from a certain events. And then through that, I was able to create some conceptual models. So the first one on the left, it's a little tiny, so I apologize, is similar to the socio-ecological model. So within the socio-ecological model, it talks about the different systems, again, the stakeholders. So as we go from the center and then out, so the center includes the person themselves, what do they have to contribute? Whether it's their own knowledge, their lived experiences and whatnot. Then as we work out, it's going to be those individuals who support this person. So this could be family or just friends. Next would be the systems that are impacted. So healthcare systems, does this individual have access to the proper healthcare? This has a huge impact in whether or not they could get mental health services as well as other services. Next one would be the coalition. So for example, Dr. Picardo had mentioned Rochester Monroe Anti-Poverty Initiative. So I've actually had the honor of working with them. So they would be an example of a coalition. And then lastly, the outer circle is really speaking to national and state level organizations that can assist. So it's very differently from most conceptual models. There's not these like little spokes, I like to call them. It's mostly just lots and lots of circles. And the reason that I created this model in particular was to acknowledge that you don't have to go through every single level. There's abilities to skip levels. So really just showing that. And then on the right, this is the stakeholder reflection model, speaking of the violent crimes and in Rochester. So really just acknowledging who's impacted again. So at the top, so we're actually asked by the city of Rochester to conduct this research, which was very honorable. And through the mayor's office, we were able to make a lot of great connections and allow for a lot of partnerships within community organizations since we did have that connection. And then as we go down, so we have our student researchers. So it was myself and then another individual as well. And so because of this research with incarcerated individuals in terms of ethics, they are a vulnerable population. So we did have to do an institutional review board. And then on the flip side, it's really showing the steps of, so the dark area, where we go to in order of the steps. And then here's just some of my mentors. So Sarah Vinch and Maya both worked on grant funding, and then Terrence Gibson was a public health professor here. So before I forget to mention future plans, within the adverse childhood experiences research, I was able to go to a conference in New Orleans last May. It was called the National Conference for on Race and Ethnicity. And through this conference, I was able to, with another student, look at first-generation students' experiences. First-generation students do experience a lot of different barriers when it comes to coming to school, both maybe not knowing the process of applying to schools and whatnot. So we worked to speak with higher ed individuals of really how do we make first-generation students comfortable and then also help them in their transition onto college. And then, as Dr. Picardo said, future plans, great question. I've applied to a few grad schools for public health, and then I've also applied to a few jobs as well. The jobs usually include mental health or the sexual violence side advocacy that I've been working on. And then if you have any questions, here's my contact information, and Dr. Picardo, you're more than welcome to distribute it as well.
Thank you so much, Mia. You can see Mia was involved in more than one research experience and how that shaped, how she made some changes and decisions in her pathway. So thank you, Mia. Chrissy. We'll let Chrissy go ahead and share her screen. And then we can take questions at the end.
You know, I was a COVID child, so you would think I would know how to use Zoom. Okay. Okay, I didn't make it angry. So the first thing I want to point out is Dr. Wormy. She is somebody I drew on my first research experiment, and she is a mad scientist, and I put her on every presentation I've ever given. So I have to keep that tradition flowing today. So first, who am I? I'm a biology major. We already talked about that stuff. Here's a fun picture of me studying at 2 a.m. biochemistry. I did get a 90 on the test, so I think it was worth it. And I am an STEM and honor scholar. So I work in Dr. Hurd's lab. This is a recent photo where we're all wearing matching t-shirts we got for lab. And he took me in before I had the prerequisites to actually do research with him. He's a cell biologist. I was not even taking microbiology yet, which is a prerequisite for cell lab and lecture. So I was pretty inexperienced when he took me on. So I'm really grateful that he actually decided to do that with me. And we work on our model organisms, C. elegans, which you can see they're these little worms that's under a microscope, so they're the size of your fingertip, really. And that's what Dr. Wormy is based on, if you were curious. So my first research experience was actually with the Summers Fellow program Picardo was talking about, where I looked at mating for these worms. That diagram is a really nice one that's on a poster I presented. And that turning behavior at the bottom corner, that's what I had to look for 10 minutes. You would put a worm on a plate and you would just stare at it for 10 minutes to see, did it do that? And then you would mark if it did it or not. It was a very riveting time. But it was really important for me to do that because I didn't have any of the prereqs yet. So it was a very nice experience to get into lab and learn how everything worked. And I actually presented this as a poster at the Rochester Academy of Sciences, the Fisher Showcase, the Tri-Beta Regional Convention that was held here in 2022. And I also went to Washington, D.C. to present it at a scholar meeting, which they sent me to alone, by the way. Here's an action shot Dr. Hurd took with me while I was presenting it the first time. This is really where I learned confidence in myself, my abilities. I was only like 19, 20. You know, you're still trying to figure yourself out. So lab definitely helped me. I also think doing this experience over summer was a fantastic idea for me because when you do it during the semester, you have all these other priorities with your classes and grades, but summer research was my #1. So I was actually able to experience and learn that I loved lab. And so then my second research experience at Fisher shifted to the sense of smells. Just to clarify, this is not Dr. Wormy. Dr. Wormy would never leave the house without a lab coat. This is her test subject. She is a mad scientist. So I was developing a sense of smell assay. So basically, these worms live on these agar pads that have to be cooled down to solidify. And I made this mold that has a Y. And you put that mold in the plate and then you pour the liquid so that it hardens. You take it out, it has that nice indent that's under the microscope. And okay, so my drawings are a little inaccurate. They don't have eyes. They only smell their world. So what you do is you put them at the end of the Y, and the one that's marked has some bacteria in it because that's what they love to eat. And if they can smell, they should be able to actually go to that side of the Y maze versus the other side. This has been semesters long. I didn't start off trying to develop a Y maze, but then I thought it was really cool you could make a maze for a little like millimeter organism. So I decided to, and HERD's been really supportive of that. I actually won a tri-beta grant for this research, so there is validity in what I'm saying. And statistically, my Y maze now works. It did take a lot of semesters to get there. And I'm actually presenting my poster tomorrow in Pennsylvania at the Tri-Beta Regional Conference, which I'm not going alone for the first time. And obviously I didn't have a picture of me showing this one yet since I haven't presented it. So this is me at the STEM meeting where I went alone. So I really learned resilience because this was semesters long, and I also had to write a grant for this. So I took a lot of what I was reading from papers and actually was implementing it. And there was a lot of branching off points that is why my project took so many turns, the 3 semesters I took with it. So yeah, it was a lot of fun though. So then I shifted out of Fisher last summer to the University of Virginia for their SRIP program, where I worked in Stephanie Redemann's lab. And I imaged C. elegans at the 1-stage embryo to look at their chromosome segregation. That sounds really scary, but if you remember the last biology course you've ever taken where they had you memorize 6 stages or so of mitosis, where chromosomes will meet and you have to just pull them apart, that's what I was looking at all summer. And I actually presented as a talk at the Leadership Alliance National Symposium, which is what this photo is taken of. And I'm actually going to be presenting the talk again in May at the Tri-Beta National Conference. That's in Georgia, something like that. And then I presented as a poster at Abercamp in Phoenix, Arizona, where they sent me alone again. And this upcoming week on Wednesday, I'm going to the National Conference for Undergraduate Research, which is NCUR, where I'm going alone again. I'm a little upset that they keep sending me places. So this is a video I actually took. The green that you're going to see is fluorescent imaging. That's the microtubules, which are basically just strings that we attach to our chromosomes to pull them apart. And the magenta you're going to see is the actual chromosomes. It looks a little bit fuzzy because of Google Slides. But you actually see the oscillating behavior where they're getting ripped apart. That's what it's supposed to look like. Then I messed up the worms. No, you can go now. Hopefully nothing bad was on my text messages. Okay, there we go. So you can see the control next to it. And that's basically what we just looked at. Now you have class 2. You can kind of see it doesn't work right. And then I had to spend hours on a data analysis Excel graph, actually graphing everything and doing the math, which honestly was a lot of fun. I did it while listening to podcasts, so it wasn't as boring as it sounds. And it was a really fun experience because Fisher is really great at getting you involved in research, but we don't have everything a graduate lab has. So I was able to look at different microscope techniques. Yeah, I was able to look at different microscope techniques like confocal, spinning disc, which probably means nothing to you, and a TM machine, which is like a really expensive liquid nitrogen thing going on. And also this lab, I'm doing a direct admit into the BIMS program for them. So I will be working with this PI again after this time. So that was really fun. I also learned a lot of independence since I don't know anyone in Virginia. I just kind of just went there and hoped it worked out. And it did. I learned independence because there was nobody. I'm from Spencerport, it's 20 minutes away. I always had somebody I could rely on, even if it wasn't at Fisher. So I really had to learn independence both out of the classroom and in the classroom. And I also was able to meet a lot of great people. Like in the photo, that's my friend Michaela and Ellie that I met at UVA. And we still keep in contact. We still text. And they're going to visit me at some point when I go back to UVA. So yeah, UVA was a great experience, which is why I encourage outside REUs after the Fisher REU. And then a little bit taking back outside of Fisher and lab in general. I did the Scholars Transforming Through Research, the STR program with Dr. Murphy, who works here, and Charlie, who's another biology senior. And we were contributing to conversations about advocacy for research as an undergraduate student. So basically, there was a series of Zooms that I would participate in where they taught us about why research and government goes hand in hand and how you need to be a part of those conversations, especially if you want a career in research. You're going to need to advocate for your research, for your funding, for the grants you want. And so then we actually got to go to DC where we met with House and Senate representatives to talk about the different bills they were passing and how they impacted us and what we wanted to see from the government. So that was a really great experience, especially because it taught me more about the different careers you can have where government and research kind of intertwine, which was a really interesting. You don't get that in a lecture experience. And I think it was also really important for me to learn how to advocate for myself and for research prior to going to graduate school, where here we have a lot of people who will advocate for you, but that's not going to be the case when you go to the big real world and be an adult. And research really has shaped me in my future. I'm basing my next step on doing research forever. And currently I want to stay in academia and potentially become a professor at a PUI. But I have heard that a PhD can beat the academia out of you. So we'll see what the next 5 years bring me. Yeah, that's really my story with research.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, what's a PY?
Primary undergraduate institution.
Oh.
We don't have any on the Zoom chat.
Obviously, they did such a great job.
I know. So I would just like to say thank you to Dr. Picardo and also me and Christina. Can we do one more round of applause for all that we have done so far? Thank you for coming out on this snowy April morning. Hopefully we'll see you in May for our next series. It's going to be the Art Center at Murphy Hall. Stay tuned for more information. We may take a field trip next month over to see the new space at Murphy Hall. So we hope to see you there. And if you have any questions, feel free to email alumni@sjfc.edu. Thank you so much. It's so nice to see it as be able to talk to our alumni just about what you guys are doing. I mean, I didn't do any of it, so.
I think she's still teaching that.
Writing her own edition of her